the study that debunks most anti-abortion arguments. That was the bold headline of an article in The New Yorker published on July 7, 2020. Dramatic, right? What The New Yorker was referring to was a recent study conducted out of UC San Francisco, in which women who had gotten abortions were compared to women who were turned away from abortion facilities because they were past the gestational limit. The Turnaway Study, as it's known, claims to debunk the concept of abortion regret or post-abortion syndrome, the idea that undergoing an abortion can have negative physical, emotional, and psychological consequences for the mother. The Turnaway Study concluded that receiving an abortion does not harm the health and well-being of women, but in fact being denied an abortion results in worse financial, health, and family outcomes. The study is widely praised and regularly cited by media outlets who have used it as ammunition against the anti-abortion community, and the researchers themselves promote the study as the ultimate authority on the subject. But a closer examination of the Turnaway Study begins to reveal a number of troubling issues. The study's design has a number of shortcomings. The study sample likely does not represent the general population. The study's creators are supporters of abortion, and the study's findings are deceptively reported. The Turnaway Study was launched in 2008 by the research group Advancing New Standards in Reproductive Health, or ANSWER, with the stated aim of describing the mental health, physical health, and socioeconomic consequences of receiving an abortion compared to carrying an unwanted pregnancy to term. 877 women were recruited from 30 abortion facilities across the U.S. and were then interviewed by phone every 6 months for the next 5 years. There are a number of issues with the design of the study. The starting sample size of 877 women has been criticized for being too small, even in the articles that praise the study. Also, with a time span of only 5 years, the study has effectively no data whatsoever on the long-term effects of abortion, and it's entirely possible that the full impact of abortion would not be felt until much later. The study does not account for the fact that almost a fourth of the women turned away went on to either have an abortion in another state or a miscarriage. The researchers also made no distinctions between women who've had multiple abortions or women who had prior or subsequent abortions. Perhaps most significantly, the study completely fails to account for the most important group of women, those who have never sought out or undergone an abortion. Over 3,000 women were invited to participate in the study, but only 37% of those women agreed to participate. This number continued to drop throughout the study, and in the end, only 17% of the women invited participated through the full 5 years. The problem with the low participation rate is that women who anticipate and experience the most negative reactions to abortion are the least likely to want to participate in interviews. Many studies support this idea, and ANSWER's own analysis of the data shows that women who reported the highest rates of relief and happiness at the baseline interview 8 days after their abortions were most likely to remain in the study, while those who reported the least relief were most likely to drop out. This dramatically increases the likelihood that the small percentage who did participate were biased towards reporting positive experiences. The researchers further increased the risk of a skewed sample by excluding women pursuing abortion because of suspected fetal anomalies, since women in this group are known to have high rates of psychological distress after abortion. Even more bias may have been introduced in the recruiting process. Women were not chosen at random. They were hand-selected by employees of the abortion facilities themselves, who may have been biased in which women they approached to enroll, passing over women who seemed more upset or anxious about their abortion. After all, abortion produces their paycheck and pays their bills. Many, if not everyone, involved in the study are strong supporters of abortion. The principal investigator in the study, Diana Green Foster, is on the board of the Later Abortion Initiative, has been applauded by NARAL Pro-Choice America for her testimony in Congress against any restrictions on late-term abortions, and is a director at Bixby Center for Global Reproductive Health, a program at UC San Francisco that trains abortionists. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. ANSWER's current director, Daniel Grossman, is a former board member at the National Abortion Rights Action League, as well as the National Abortion Federation, and currently serves on California Governor Newsom's Future of Abortion Council. Daniel Grossman is also an abortionist. ANSWER itself is based out of UC San Francisco, whose roots in promoting abortion date as far back as the 1960s. UCSF has produced many of the country's leading abortion advocates, including Answers founders Tracy Weitz and Felicia Stewart, and current director Daniel Grossman. UCSF participated in the clinical trials of the abortion pill and has pushed for the deregulation of the abortion pill by the FDA. The study received funding from the David and Lucille Packard Foundation, the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, and the Wallace Alexander Gerbaud Foundation, all of whom also invested in the manufacturer of the abortion pill, Danco Laboratories. The individuals and organizations behind the study are not objective scientists. They are pro-abortion activists whose beliefs and agendas compromise the integrity of the study. Answer has heavily emphasized their finding that over 95% of women feel that abortion was the right decision for them. This conclusion was based on a single vague question whose limited response options of yes, no, or uncertain didn't allow for any nuance. This conclusion has also been inaccurately reported in media, as 95% of women don't regret their abortion.
And the other, big finding from the study, so if people have seen the study in the newspapers, the big finding is that women who have abortions don't regret having had abortions. Over 95% at all time periods say it was the right decision for them.
On the other hand, Answer's data also shows that only 4% of the women who were denied abortion still wish they could have had one 5 years later. So headlines could equally have read, "Have a baby, you won't regret it." But they didn't, because it doesn't support their narrative. Perhaps on the most simplistic level, the Turnaway study is unable to account for the testimonies of women who express regret and have experienced tremendous trauma as a result of their abortions. Websites like Silent No More and Abortion Changes You and many others contain the testimonies of thousands of women who were so traumatized by their abortions that they took it on themselves to share their stories. Women such as these are clearly in the population, and yet the Turnaway study seems to have missed them entirely.
There were times when I didn't even remember that I had an abortion. That's how deeply I tucked it down inside of me, and I tried to just move on and pretend like it never happened. But looking back, I started to struggle with self-confidence issues that I had never had before. I also struggled with anxiety and depression, and I lost a bunch of weight after my abortion. I just had no appetite anymore. I felt at times like I had no reason to live, and I had suicidal thoughts.
I just thought, oh, thank goodness. It's gone, it's over, and now I can just go on about my life like nothing ever happened. And I would just like to say that that is the opposite of what happened. It absolutely changed me forever. For years and years, I held that secret inside of me, and my actions, my words, my decisions, all of the things that I did for the rest of my life from that point until now were very much affected.
You try to ignore what really happened to you, and that's what I did for a long time. A good 20 years, I literally didn't even think much about it. All of the anger and the bitterness that I'd been holding about my abortion, I'd never dealt with. Everybody else dealt with it because it exhibited itself everywhere in my life. Really tapping into and reaching into a lot of the feelings that I had taken a lot of time and effort to bury. And there were so many people around me that paid the price.
For about 20 years, I regretted my abortion. I eventually remarried to a wonderful man, and we had a daughter. But even still, I still had this regret of my first baby because it just stayed with me.
I lived in persistent denial of my connections to abortion and the nightmares and the depression and the sense of worthlessness that I was experiencing almost daily. I am 68 years old, and I can tell you I live with regret of my 2 abortions every single day.
The Turnaway study makes some very bold claims, but fails to back them up with sound and rigorous research. The flawed design, small skewed sample, ideological bias, and deceptive reporting suggests that the aim of this study was not to investigate, but to produce data that supports an ideology. The homepage of Answer's website suggests the same. This makes complete sense, since behind all of the competing research are two competing agendas, one seeking to encourage women to get abortions, and the other to discourage. Diana Green Foster herself states in her book, The Turnaway Study, this book is about scientific research. But because the research subject is abortion, it is also a book about politics, policy, and the lives of women and children. But what even is abortion? Well, remember that headline from The New Yorker, the study that debunks most anti-abortion arguments? The central argument against abortion is simply that because it is always wrong to kill an innocent human being, and abortion kills an innocent human being, abortion is always wrong. The Turnaway Study, on the other hand, is grounded on the assumption that abortion is nothing more than a benign medical procedure. In doing so, they ignore the budding human life whose destruction is the true subject of abortion. It is only by intentionally ignoring the humanity and very existence of these helpless, voiceless children that the questions presented in these studies even seem important. But when abortion is recognized as the direct and intentional killing of another human being, those questions become all but irrelevant.